gosh. Oh no! I'm a klutz if you didn't know. Hello, beautiful people. I'm Allison. Welcome back to aknbooks. Today, we're going to be ranking all of Mitch Albom's books. As you may know if you've seen one or two of my other videos, Mitch Albom is my favorite author. He has written my favorite book. I love all of his books. He has 8 books that are either fiction or memoir. I have finally read all 8. They were all very, very good. I want to rank them today, and I am very excited to do so because, you know, he's my favorite, and I'm going to advertise him because I think more people need to read him. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go from 8 to 1. I do not dislike any of Mitch Albom's books. It was really hard for me to rank these in order. I only really have a top 1 and 2, and then all the other ones are tied. There isn't a Mitch Albom book out there that has not made me cry when I've read it. He has the power to make me cry, and I always end up crying, and you know, I can't help it. And it's half the time it's happy crying, half the time it's sad crying. Well, I will do a cry-o-meter for each of these, 0 to 5. So number 8, I have Tuesdays with Morrie. Tuesdays with Morrie is Mitch's most well-known book, actually. It is his first book. It's a memoir about him and how he visited his one college professor every Tuesday when he had ALS. I read this sophomore year of high school, and this is the book that got me tied into Mitch Albom, that got me into reading Mitch Albom books. So I have a lot to thank for this book. Tuesdays with Morrie, I would just give it a 1 cryometer. Coming in at number 7 is The Timekeeper. Isn't this cover really cool and the colors? It's very nice. The inventor of the world's first clock is punished for trying to measure God's greatest gift. He is banished to a cave for eternity to hear the voices of all who come after him seeking more time. Eventually, with his soul nearly broken, Father Time has granted his freedom, a magical hourglass and a mission to redeem himself by teaching 2 earthly people, a troubled teen girl and a dying billionaire, the true meaning of time. To save himself, he must save them both. So a lot of Mitch's stories have multiple stories interlacing with each other. So this one has 3 mostly interlacing with each other. With The Timekeeper, I would also give this a 1 for the cryometer because I remember crying, just not a lot. Okay, next up is For One More Day. I'm pretty sure this is the second Mitch Albom book I've read. I read this the summer after sophomore year. I went to the library and I checked out 2 books by Mitch Albom because I'm I know this author. For One More Day is a story about a mother and a son and a relationship that lasts a lifetime and beyond. It explores the question, what would you do if you can spend one more day with a lost loved one? On the cryometer, I would give this 2. 2 on the cryometer out of 5 because I remember crying more to this one. Okay, 5 is The First Phone Call from Heaven. Yes, some of his titles are so long I'm afraid of saying them wrong because I've done that before. So The First Phone Call from Heaven is about this town, this made-up fictional town where people start getting phone calls from heaven, if you couldn't tell by the title. People start getting calls from their lost family members, lost friends, who have passed away. Oh my gosh. I was crying at the beginning of this book. This guy, Sully, goes on a search. He doesn't believe that these calls are actually from heaven, so he goes on the search to see what's going on and if it's real or what is happening. On the cryometer, I would give this a 3 out of 5 on the cryometer just because it was hitting me throughout the book. Okay, number 4 is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. So The 5 People You Meet in Heaven is about this guy who dies, and it's about the transition from Earth to heaven, and that there's a place kind of in between where you meet 5 people that you affected in life. And supposedly everyone goes through this. They meet 5 people. Eddie dies saving a girl's life, a little girl's life. Cryometer for 5 People You Meet in Heaven is a 3. Okay, number 3 is actually my most recent read for Mitch Albom books, the last book I read from Mitch Albom, and that is Have a Little Faith. So I actually don't have the cover that goes on this book, which is why I just have the hard right now. This is his second memoir. It's about his own little religious journey when his rabbi of his whole life asks him to write his eulogy. And then it's also interlacing with another story about this other pastor in Michigan, and it's interlacing those 2 stories about how Mitch is with this guy in Michigan, helping him out, helping out this congregation, and how he's writing this eulogy for his rabbi and growing closer to him. Cryometer for Have a Little Faith. I don't know, either a 2 or a 3. I'm gonna give it a 2.5 for the cryometer for Have a Little Faith. Okay, number 2 is The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. This is the second most recent book I've read by Mitch Albom. I read it like 2 months ago. His most recent book that came out, it came out in October. Like, I have a recent video on Mitch Albom and this unboxing video. This book is a sequel to The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, and it's about the girl who Eddie saved in the first book. And you didn't know what happened to her, but this, you find out what happens to her. The cryometer for this book would be a 4. This book hit me pretty hard. All I'm doing is saying that each book is a really good book, but seriously, I'm being so honest that I do love every single one of his books. I'm gonna do the last book right now, my favorite. It's my favorite book ever. It's my number 1 for Mitch Albom, my number 1 for every single book I've ever read. And that is The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. So I read The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto like probably over a year ago. This book is about a guy named Frankie Presto, and they described this in the jacket, in the synopsis, with its Forrest Gump-like journey through the music world. So it's like Forrest Gump-ish, but music. So that is how I explain it to people who don't know Mitch Albom and don't know the story. And I want them to get into it. But it's about this kid named Frankie Presto and just his whole entire life, and it's narrated, get this, it's narrated by music. So crazy. It goes back and forth between perspectives and time and Frankie's life and relationships and everything in his music journey. In Mitch Albom's epic new novel, the voice of music narrates the tale of its most beloved disciple, Frankie Presto. A Spanish war orphan raised by a blind music teacher. At 9 years old, Frankie is sent to America on the bottom of a boat. His only possession is an old guitar and 6 magical strings. But Frankie's talent is touched by the gods, and it waves him through the magical landscape of the 20th century, from classical to jazz to rock and roll. Frankie elevates to the rock star himself, yet his gift becomes his burden. As he realizes that he can actually affect people's futures, his guitar strings turn blue whenever a life is altered. Overwhelmed by life, lost in this power, he disappears for years, only to re-emerge in a spectacular and mysterious farewell. Okay, so on the cryometer, I would give this a 5. So I'm gonna go to the recommendations right now. So if you're into the memoir, true story, nonfiction kind of thing, I would either read one of his memoirs, which would either be Tuesdays with Morrie or Have a Little Faith. If you really want a family kind of thing, First Phone Call from Heaven or For One More Day. I mean, this is pretty obvious, but Time for the Timekeeper, and how you spend your time, something to get a little perspective on how you're living your life. Read the Timekeeper. If you want a book that has a sequel, do these 2, 5 People You Meet in Heaven and The Next Person You Meet in Heaven. I would honestly probably recommend this book to you if you're starting out with Mitch Albom in general, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. It's a pretty well-liked, loved book. Finally, I would recommend this if you're into music, if you're into a longer read maybe. This one's kind of longer, so if you want a music read, a kind of movie-like kind of thing, it feels really movie-like when you read it. That is all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching. Please read a Mitch Albom book. You should tell me in the comments if you do, because they're good and they're awesome and they will make you think about yourself and about others and your faith and everything like that. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm Allison. You can follow me at aknbooks on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please like and subscribe. That would mean so much to me. Please have a nice week. I'll see you guys next week on Monday. Bye, beautiful people!